I think the key to understanding how he changed so much when it comes to Perseverance is just to listen to Painkiller. When he does that with Painkiller, you know damn well that if Chuck Schuldiner wanted to be a power metal vocalist, he could have done it. You can hear it in that song that at any moment in time, he could have gotten rid of the death kind of thing entirely and pulled off a, Ripper Owens kind of vocal. He could have done that.
I was just listening to that today, and the Painkiller thing was extremely impressive. I don't know if Chuck ever got around to performing it live though, because no doubt it would have been a struggle to knock that stuff out live,
But the thing is, Chuck had that vocal ability to where if he needed to be a very raspy heavy metal singer, he could have done it. And if we have any evidence of that, we are of course putting those things out as bonus material, because Chuck could sing. And I think that by 1996, at his age and everything, that's what he was starting to think he wanted to do. Maybe not sing himself, but he certainly wanted to have a good, powerful singer. He also wanted to concentrate on the guitar and just be the guitar player and not have all of the focus to be completely on him as a front man. So all of these things played a part in the evolution.
Okay, so moving on to another question, Eric. Could you talk a little bit about Chuck as a artist, painter, drawer? This is something I'm interested in, because it's like, I'd like to know, was Chuck quite good at this, or was he quite crude with this? Because not all of us can...
Chuck, that's pretty easy to answer. Chuck was actually very much into art, and he was quite a fine artist himself, and he was very much into sculpture as well. So there are pieces that the Schuldiners have that he actually made, and a lot of the ideas in the artwork that are related to death came from Chuck. And the ideas and things like the death logo and all that kind of stuff, the cover art ideas all came from him. And I remember the cover for either Leprosy or Spiritual Healing, where he had the idea, what he wanted to convey, the idea from the song, and rough sketches. It's what he did with Perseverance. It's definitely what he did with When Man and Machine Collide. He has the idea and the concept.
The next question is, I know you're not a big fan of this one, but what was Chuck's attitude towards violence? Like, you can see in some of his early years, the 1990s, like perhaps 1990 itself, you can see Chuck gets quite aggressive with certain rowdy members of the crowd that, are causing trouble. And this question is from Yugdra666 and Lich King Skullwar. So if you could talk about Chuck's views on this.
Well, there's a couple of thoughts about Chuck as far as him being a tough guy and whatever. I've seen him instigate or pump himself up into a frenzy where he was putting on his leather gloves ready to duke it out, and luckily he was talked out of it. I think we were in Rotterdam on tour, and this was one of our opening acts, a member of that opening act, and he claimed, beat the shit out of him and that kind of thing. Look, he had rage inside him. We all had rage. We all came to blows at one point or another physically. We were rather physical people, running around screaming. We weren't afraid of anything. And that's something that comes when you're a young guy. When you're a young guy, you think you're going to live forever. And Chuck certainly was a young guy, and he certainly thought he was going to live forever. Did he beat anyone up? He didn't beat anyone up as far as I know. Has he ever been in a fight? Yes, he has. Would he have jumped into the crowd if someone threw a bottle at him? Yes. Did he have to be constrained from doing some stuff like that? Yes. Did he pump iron? No. Was he well built? Obviously. People can see that in the pictures. He was a strong fella.
Yeah, Chuck was a tank.
Did he lift weights? Well, he lifted his guitars.
So his
Strong guy.
Chuck being in shape wasn't from lifting weights and stuff.
No. I mean, he wasn't a weightlifter guy. He was just fit. He was always running around. He was always doing stuff. He was always moving his own gear. He was always humping his own equipment, moving it around, and he was a well-built individual. We were all thin. But he was always kind of muscular, and I notice it now as a older adult, looking at the pictures of us when we were young. That his arms were pretty big, actually.
Yeah.
I never noticed it at the time, of course, because I didn't spend my time looking at his arms.
The way I've heard it referred to, and it's not. I mean, the way I've heard it referred to is I've seen some fans say Chuck had pipes. That's what they call it. They say Chuck had pipes.
What? I thought that refers to his vocals.
Look,
he wasn't fat. He used to make fun of fat people, and I don't mean fat people in general, but fat ex-members of the band, or it was always playful. He was a healthy guy who probably had a cancer in his head. It's a big irony. It's shocking to me that somebody that could have kept as in good shape as he did would die prematurely. I mean it's a strange thing. But did he fight? No. Was he a fighter? No. Was he constantly getting into fights with people? Maybe verbally, but he was someone who didn't like conflict. He would always hope that someone would jump in at the last minute and stop the fight, not because he was a coward, but because I think he knew underneath it that violence doesn't solve anything. So that's kind of a dichotomy, because he would work himself into a frenzy, and he would just get himself totally worked up, and that rage would dissipate at some point, and he would just become mellow again.
Moving on to the next question. Was Chuck into sports? And this is from Stone Dead 1991. Like,
he was into air hockey.
Yeah.
He was into foosball. He was into games you play in a pub.
Did you ever see that? Did you ever see that video? I can't remember where it's from, but Chuck is having a dude for kicking over his microphone. He's like, "I'm trying to play a show, man," and he's like talking about how he's trying to put on a professional show, and he gets the guy kicked out or something. And the reason I find that video particularly funny is because the guy gets kicked out, and then later on another dude crowd surfs and kicks the mic over, and I just thought that was pretty funny. But
well, there's of course I don't know where they were in Houston. It was on the Spiritual tour. There was a riot at the gig, and the police had to show up, and there's a video of that on there somewhere. And someone threw something at the stage, and he got really, really annoyed. And when people did that kind of stuff, he would get really pissed. And there's no doubt that if he could, he would have jumped into the crowd and beat the shit out of somebody, and he would have done it. But there's always going to be some tough guy, some tough metal guy who's going to say that, well, if he would have ever done that to me, I would have killed him.
I would have kicked his ass.
It's all really hypothetical.
Freddie from Houston, Texas, again, he wants to know what newer metal bands, if any, did Chuck like just before his passing?
Oh.
Or
In Flames, Hammerfall.
Hearts on fire, hearts on fire.
Yeah, he liked classic metal bands. He worshipped Kiss. He worshipped Merciful Fate. He also liked alternative. By the way, he didn't just listen to metal. He was quite into shoegaze. He really liked the band Lush. I also worship the band Lush, and we really like that kind of stuff. We like dark lyrics. Believe it or not, he liked the Smiths and Smiths lyrics. He liked a lot of those bands that were young at the time, like In Flames and bands like that.
What was
At the Gates and that kind of stuff that was happening at the time. He hated nu metal with a passion, and nu metal was just really getting going when he was diagnosed. He hated nu metal. He couldn't understand it. The whole rapping, having a rapper in your band, you probably wouldn't have liked Linkin Park. I hate to say that to Linkin Park. Great guys. He wasn't into Limp Bizkit kind of music.
No. Well,
he didn't get it. And you can see towards the end of his career when he went to Chile and was in some of those interviews for the Perseverance tour of Chile, he was actually pretty antagonistic towards a lot of that new stuff. He didn't understand it. He was quite irate about why classic metal was being ignored by the late 90s and replaced and supplanted by this new kind of thing.
The thing is, though, all things come full circle. So the classic metal is always going to get its appreciation again and again. And I wouldn't be surprised if Death has 10 rebirths and this kind of...
I hope so. And I think he would have been really happy to see bands like, is it Dragon Force, that kind of band?
Oh, yeah.
Like power metal bands. He would have been really thrilled to see a resurgence in that kind of, that that kind of
yeah
wave of British heavy metal-ish kind of dancing horses and,
Judas
the
Priest.
sky ain't enough, all that operatic kind of.
Yeah.
He loved that, and he would have really thought it was great that it came back. I think he was really disturbed by the fact that by the time he died, MTV was a sorry mess.
It still is.
Metal was just, it had ceased to exist. People cut off all their hair. I think he was feeling like he was a man out of his time at certain periods in that late 90s time.
Moving on, Eric, what was his favourite country or city to play in, if he had one?
Peking. I mean Beijing, sorry.
Beijing?
Yeah, New Delhi, Canberra, Australia, Peoria, Illinois.
He loved them all.
York.
In England?
In northeast England. No, I'm making this up. Can't you figure that out?
Yeah, I kind of thought that at the start.
Oh, what kind of question is that? It's a great question. Sorry, fan.
It's not my question, Eric.
I know it's a great question. It's a very, very difficult one for me to possibly answer. What his favorite place?
Okay. No, that's fair enough. I mean, there's a lot of these questions that are.
I know one thing. He loved playing in England, and he loved playing in London.
I mean,
like Astoria or any of those places. He always had a great time there.
Well, a lot of these questions are personal to Chuck, so no doubt they're going to be hard for you to answer. But I thought just channel Chuck. It's no big deal.
Thank you for those questions, by the way.
That question is from Dan Zaza.